This right here has always been my dream car. But right now, there's just nothing.
For some it may be a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, and that's fine, but for me this old Ford has always been the car of my dreams, and it always will be. I've been putting in so much effort, time and money from the second that I got this car, dealing with setbacks and learning a lot of new stuff along the way, and even fixing a transmission, which is something that I thought I'd never be able to do. And now, after fixing the final issues and making it look amazing in the last video, I went to start it up for the first time after winter storage, but nothing seemed to happen. So I think it's only right to get this car back on the road.
So right now the most important thing is getting this car started, even though I sort of want to fit the new exhaust system first, but I think that's for later in the video, so definitely stay tuned for that. But right now we have to focus on it not starting, and I already double checked the battery and that's fine. So I think we have to look either at the starter itself or maybe a bad connection to the starter. One of those things will probably be the problem.
A starter has two main jobs, the first one being to kick out a little gear via this lever. That is done using a solenoid, and it allows for the gear to make contact with the gear on the flywheel. After that, the starter has to turn over. Now that's the blue part. Now this part also has some separate wire connections going to it and also some brushes.
So because I think I can actually hear the solenoid clicking, that means that it has to be in this blue part and not in the red part. So it could be the brushes, but it could also be the wiring to the brushes or to the motor. So that's something that we have to figure out. Now I did order some new brushes for this car, as you can see right here. Fingers crossed that these brushes are the problem.
Because the car doesn't start at the minute, that means that I have to push it into place, and even though it's not that heavy of a car, it's still a small workout doing this. Then I got some stuff together since I don't own a car ramp, and I got the car up in the air.
The starter motor is located right here, so first thing I'm gonna do is jack up the car and trying to get to it.
I always throw down some old bed sheets when working out on the driveway. It protects the actual driveway and it makes it feel like I'm having a little picnic, so that's a double win there. And after slightly cramping up, I got to the starter and found out that I might just be very lucky this time.
So I think, or I know, this bottom connection is loose, because that just might be our problem, and that would be the easiest fix in the world. Excuse my camera work, but it's quite difficult getting a camera underneath here.
Sometimes you lose, but this is definitely a win. And speaking of losing, I did find some other things under the car, so that might need addressing later. But for now, since I let the car warm up, let's do a quick oil change, and don't forget to change out that brush washer on the sump plug. In my experience, and from what I've read and heard, Castrol is one of the best oils you can buy, and since this is such a small channel, at least you know that I'm not getting sponsored by them. That being said, if you like to support me doing fun stuff like this, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe down below. Thanks.
So I just quickly wanted to change out the CV joint boot, and I ordered the boots but forgot to order the nut that actually goes on the axle, this one, and it's punched, so it's not really a good idea to reuse that. But luckily, if your parents have an attic and you save a lot of stuff. Ta-da! Score, and I even found a new retaining clip for the axle. So yep, let's get this job over with.
One of the added benefits of keeping your car really clean is that you're able to spot these kinds of problems, since a torn boot really flicks grease everywhere. It's jobs like these that took me a complete day before, but are now fairly easy due to increasing experience and also some better tools.
So my brother just came up to me and asked me, "You want to borrow this?" Do I? Lefty loosey, right? Oh. I know you're not supposed to use chrome sockets, but they'll manage.
So I ended up pulling the inner joint apart instead of the outer, which is no big problem at all, except it needs a little extra cleaning and a snap ring needs to come off. After inspecting for wear, I put everything back together with some new grease and I could call it a night, and a few days later it was about time we started working on that exhaust.
So I was actually planning on showing you guys the entire process of building an exhaust for this car. But just because I ended up trying so many different things, I think it's better to just show you the end result and then tell you how I got there and why I got there. So right now I'm just going to change out some of the gaskets and that should basically finish off the exhaust. And then I can finally show you guys what I did. The original exhaust that was fitted to the car was a little quiet, so I tried fitting something else. Blah 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 blah.
The original exhaust that was fitted to the car was a little quiet, so I tried something else. After fitting a 2.5-inch stainless steel muffler, the car sounded a lot more sporty, but it was just way too loud. The end tips also didn't look that great, they were just too big, although they looked better than the single one that I had before. I tried different tube shapes and also lengths, but then I stumbled on some plans for an old Simmons catback system. I basically copied that muffler design and it worked out perfect.
So right here, these are the new exhaust tips. I decided to go with 2 since it just matched the bumper a little better, since there's sort of a cutout right here. So that just goes to the new muffler. The new muffler is about 500 mils long and it's a straight through muffler with some perforated holes inside. A shorter one actually ended up droning a lot on the highway, so I think at least 200 mils is what I need. And it just barely fits in here, but yeah, barely is good enough for me. And then going on to that is basically the original exhaust. So that ended up sounding, yeah, just the best. The original resonator is over there as well, if you can just see it. And also the original catalytic converter, since I do need to pass emissions, of course. It just sounds perfect to me. It's not obnoxious, it's not too loud, but it just sounds a little sporty, which is sort of exactly what I wanted to begin with. So yeah, I'm very happy with this. Let's show you guys what it sounds like.
Even though I was planning to convert the entire exhaust to a 2.5-inch system, this single muffler did the trick for me, so that's very nice. Something that isn't very nice is the crusty state of my brake discs. On places that the brake pads don't touch, the discs have gotten a little rusty, so I'm using a wire wheel and some sandpaper to make it smooth before masking and painting. These bolts got out pretty easy since I replaced and copper greased them previous, and after that I started masking everything off with some tape. I'm not too careful masking the disc since any remaining paint will get scraped off on the first time that I brake, but just masking the majority seemed like the smart thing to do here. Instead of masking everything, some old cloths worked perfect for protecting calipers and saved me a lot of time. And after paint, I really had to fight myself not to go and clean the calipers, since the fresh paint only starts secure after getting hot a few times, so getting chemicals on them right now wouldn't be ideal to say the least. Then it was about time to re-grease and install those screws, and of course I made use of the added access to the back of the wheel just to do some cleaning. Just added some tire shine to the clean wheel, and of course I repeated all of this for the remaining 3 brakes. You might think that I'm crazy for coating the discs, and you might be right, but that said, don't they look amazing? Small things like this really make the car look perfect, and that's exactly what I want. Another small issue that needs addressing are the seams on the trunk area, since they are starting to look a little rusty. I learned by now to tackle these issues immediately to avoid bigger issues down the line, so that's what I will do.
It's not that big of a working area, but I'm not removing the entire trunk or the boot lid just to do this. So I'm wedging my hands in between to sand down the rusty areas, and it actually looked a lot better than I thought after sanding. As you might start to see a pattern here, let me explain one more time that I really like to mask things off with some old sheets and cloths. I only use plastic sheets if I have to paint really large stuff, since the paint could seep through the cloths if you need to apply a lot of it. I'm very gently applying some primer and after that some color. The color doesn't need a clear coat, and the reason for using this paint is that it makes it possible to polish and feather in the new paint into the old, since there's always a small difference in color. After removing the tape, you can see a hard line which will disappear after a bit of polishing. And after both of the sides were done, I moved on to the door jambs, since there are some very small rust spots in the edge of the fender as well. In these spots I want to apply paint in the same way. First clean and sand out the rust, before degreasing and applying coats of paint. No one will ever see or notice this, but it helps me sleep a little better at night, knowing that these door jambs are also very nice and tidy. These spots will also be polished as best as possible after the paint is fully cured, and I use this stuff, which is hollow section wax in, you guessed it, hollow sections on the car, but it also works great for these door jambs, just to protect them from the inside as well. So after all of the paint had hardened, I could start to polish, and finally I do need to get some sealant for this gap, just to protect it.
Okay, let's go for a drive. So this car, I don't drive it as a daily, but to be honest, I think you could. Of course it has some small personality features, but you know, it always starts when you need it to, and at least when the terminals are on tight, and it never let me down. It even drove to Italy and Portugal in the middle of summer without even breaking a sweat. So I think that says a lot about it being pretty reliable. So like I said before, this is my forever car, and the entire story might be a bit long, but in short, my grandparents bought this car when new, and they basically handed it down to me as my first ever car, and also happened to be pretty much my dream car. So to be able to wrench on the car and basically just restore it completely and share the joy of doing that with my grandparents, well, I mean that's just an amazing experience. So luckily I kept track of what I did, and right now let's show you guys everything that I did to get the car where it's at right now. So luckily I kept track of everything, because this is a really long list of everything that's been done to the car. A new windscreen, all of the fluids and the filters have been changed. A new battery, I restored the calipers, every bushing in the suspension has been changed. Some new shocks, new springs, new bears, a new fifth gear fork and hub, a new clutch, new exhaust, and of course all on top the ceramic coating on the paint. And I think that's about it. But I mean, look at it. You know what, I'm not out here making these videos just to show you guys how perfect my life is. So here you go. I guess I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.